Well, welcome to Don't Know Much About, where curiosity always kicks off this conversation. And today we are in for a treat as I sit down with Shella Alcabes. Shella is a knowledgeable and creative litigator with over 15 years of experience in commercial litigation. Miss Alcabes joined the Freedom Foundation because of her love for liberty and to fight for the protection of free amendment rights. She's also taken on teachers' unions, which is huge. Shella received her BA from Stanford University in philosophy and her law degree from Loyola Law School, where she was also writing for Loyola Law School Law Review. Shella was born in Ukraine and immigrated to the United States with her family when she was 6 years old. She's fluent in Russian and proficient in both Hebrew and French. In her time off, Shella spends time with her sweet little 3 kids and barbecuing with her husband. But fun fact, Shella is my cousin, and we grew up fighting over dolls and driving our grandparents and parents crazy. So I'm going to begin with a good old fight.
Okay.
How is it that are you proficient in Hebrew and French? Is that really true, Shella?
Well, I was puffing up the resume a little bit, but I did take Hebrew up until all the way through 8th grade. We went to Jewish schools, both you and I, and then I took Hebrew in college, and
You
then
did?
I lived in Israel.
Oh, that's right. That's true.
Right. Yes. Remember?
Fine.
And then also I took French in high school, but I had the most incredible French teacher. And sorry to toot my own horn, but I have like a knack for languages. And those 4 years in high school I don't know, they stuck with me.
Yeah. Well, you do. I remember look, I'm just kidding with you. I remember that you really loved French.
Yeah.
So this show is called Don't Know Much About, but I always kick it off with asking people what their tagline is. The tagline for this show is, it all begins with a question. So what is on your mind? What is something that you've been most concerned about, or like what captures where you're at now? What would be that tagline for you?
Okay, I'll start with the tagline and move from there. My tagline is, I was a neocon, then I wasn't, now I am.
Okay. You're going to have to unpack that one for me. I was a neocon, then I wasn't, and now I am.
Yes.
Okay, tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah, I'll step back for 1 second just to say why I'm even having this conversation with you. As long as we've known each other, which is our whole lives, but let's just say maybe in the last 35 years of our lives,
Oh, God.
we've both been pretty conservative politically.
Yes.
We grew up in like Russian Soviet households where it was like anything to the left of extreme right was like communism. So that's just, not to reveal anything about you, but that's for sure how I grew up.
Yeah.
And most recently in this iteration of the world, I have lived on Twitter and, I spend way too many hours on it. And one disturbing thing has come to light. I see tons of anti-Semitism on Twitter, but on the right. So in the past, I'd be like, everyone on the left, they just hate Israel and like they're anti-Semitic. But, those Republicans, they love Israel. They're always supporting it. And then all of a sudden, I come to see so many disgusting anti-Semitic and anti-Israel comments on the right. And I wanted to start thinking about, where is this coming from? Why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
So
And hold on, let me just pause for a second.
Sure.
When did you start noticing it, would you say, for you?
really, I would say in the last 6 months to a year.
Okay.
It really is very recent.
And so you're on Twitter and you're seeing, can you give me, so like very classical anti-Semitism, but also something that you would think belongs on the left. Now you see it on the right, which is, anti-Israel discourse. Yes?
Exactly that. So it's both things on the right. I'm seeing the anti-Israel discourse, but also seeing just like memes, like pictures of 3 people, and the top of the caption will be something like, these 3 individuals created like transgender surgery. What do they all have in common? And then at the bottom it says, they're all Jews. And
what do you think about that? So yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think it sucks because they are all Jews. Like many bad ideas that you and I hate come from Jews.
But
Communism, socialism, the big ones. Relativism, moral relativism, all these bigger ideas, they originated, at least in some part, from some Jewish thinkers. Mm-hmm. Secular, I'll note, completely anti-religious Jewish thinkers, but still Jewish thinkers nonetheless. But of course, it disregards all the amazing things that Jews brought to the world. And even if it didn't, there's something inherently racist, I don't know what to call it, but like anti-Semitic, to lump all Jews into one category and say they are pernicious and parasitic because they've had some people that did some things you didn't like. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the definition of bigotry, right? When you combine all people together and say, I don't like some of them for this reason, so I don't like all of them.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Mm-hmm. So I, too, have been thinking about this for a long time, and mostly on the left. But recently, and because of you, by the way, you really brought this to my attention, was the emergence of this on the right. But I thought to myself, like, what on the left, I was thinking, what was prompting the left to take positions that were, as you say, pernicious, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish? And I identified it as anti-Western frameworks, grievance narratives of power and powerlessness. And I thought, well, surely then on the right, what will prevent from this virus of anti-Semitism to come in would be, pro-liberty, pro-freedom, Judeo-Christian values, patriotism.
Personal responsibility.
Right, love of America. Mm-hmm. Are you saying that those people, so explain that to me. How do you explain this phenomenon of the same hate, and it's like they love America, they personal responsibility, liberty, and yet there's this window of opportunity for anti-Semitism. How did that happen? What do you think about that?
Yeah, okay. I'll try to make this journey as simple as possible, and I ask you to come along on the ride with me.
Let's go.
But feel free, obviously, to interrupt me whenever you have questions. And this goes to my tagline. During the Iraq War, when I was in high school and college, and the Afghanistan War, I was a neocon. When I heard that term, that's what I felt like I was.
And explain that.
Right.
Yeah.
So neoconservatism is the idea that all people can be and deserve to be free, democratic, and capitalist. Mm-hmm. And that it is in the best interest of America and also in the best interest of the ideals that America stands for to go and bring liberty across all the lands.
Okay, so let me just pause. Mm-hmm. So you were for this idea that what is good about America is liberty, freedom, democracy, and we should definitely go promote and disseminate this into the world. You promoted that. You supported that.
Yes.
So you believed when we kind of went, I remember we're very, you and I are only 1 year apart. When America went to Iraq, one of the talking points, if you will, was that we were going to bring democracy to Iraq. And you initially said what?
And I said yes, wholeheartedly.
Okay.
And I remember like a picture in Time magazine with all the women in their hijabs standing there in Iraq. This was like towards the beginning of the war, but when we were winning. Mm-hmm. And they were all standing there with purple fingers because the way that they identified you at the poll that you voted was they like dyed your finger purple. They put like a little purple paint on it so you couldn't vote twice. But it was like a group of women in hijabs putting up their fingers. They're all purple fingers showing I voted. It's like the I voted stickers that we have.
Yeah.
And it was like this powerful, you could say, neocon image of like, look, we brought democracy to this like horrible place where women are oppressed, where Saddam Hussein is gassing people and putting people in camps, internment camps. And we did this. We brought democracy somewhere. And there was like a sense of pride about it and a sense of purpose. And it was not so bipartisan. It was more on the right. Everyone on the left was screaming, not my war. Why are we here? Remember Sandy Sheehan, her son died. He was a in the army and he died in Iraq, and she stood outside of the White House for years protesting the war.
Yes.
And a lot of other people on the left protested the war. Because the argument on the left, contrary to this one on the right about we can bring liberty everywhere, and by the way, it makes sense because countries that are democratic don't go to war with each other. Like if I snapped my fingers and every country in the world was a democracy, a capitalist democracy, we'd have no more war in actuality. Because have you ever seen, it's true, in World War II, Germany fought France.
Okay.
You're right. But since World War II, there have been no conflicts between democracies.
Okay.
Like France doesn't fight England, doesn't fight Denmark, doesn't fight Australia. Those countries just don't go to war with each other.
Okay, I'm with
So
you.
there's like an element of it that is empirically true. Okay. On the left, the position was, during the Iraq War, who are we to tell other people how to live their lives? Every country has its own benefits and detriments. We shouldn't go and tell other people how to live. We don't have that right. We don't have that moral authority to do it.
Right.
Okay. So that was my position.
Your position was, but we do and we should.
Yes.
Okay.
Then the years roll by and you get the Trump presidency, and we're stuck in this endless war in Afghanistan, in this endless war in Iraq, with like an uncertain future for Iraq. It seems like the neocon project of bringing democracy and capitalism and peace to the Middle East is not working. It did not work. And at that point, you had to ask yourself the question, why? And you can come at it from two different sides. There's two answers. Answer number one is, yes, neoconservatism is the ideal, but we don't have enough money for it, and we don't have enough people for it. We don't have enough support for it. And without all those things, we can't get this big project of this utopian project in a way done.
Okay.
So let's instead spend our money and our resources on America first. And if we have fed our population and clothed our population and build good roads, then we can consider going to other countries, intervening and making them better off and democratic. Option number two is you go back to the old left perspective. We never had a right to do this to begin with. We're not morally superior. Who are we to have done it? And this is proof. Look how it didn't work out. Proof that we shouldn't have done it in the first place.
There's also option three.
Tell me, yes.
Option three is that the values are in contrast to the values of the Middle East. That even with the resources and the backing and all that, you can't force a people ultimately who have a very different value from you, who are tribal, who are clannish, who don't want democracy, who do not understand how to be democratic. It will fail. That's what I think. I think that the Middle East, we could discuss, but much of the failures is, and I'm very pro-Western in one way, but here I will have to say that bringing these Western values to a people that it just doesn't resonate with them, it just may not work. But what I want to say to you is, in a way, just to bring this back to woke right or anti-Semitism on the right, the failures of the neocon project is what you're saying. It's a failed project, is the talking point for someone like Tucker Carlson, who was an interventionist, who was someone, a big champion for those things, and is saying, look, we really messed up. We should be America first. So now, but tell me about the anti-Semitism. How do we get to anti-Semitism from
Totally.
there?
And I apologize. This is so long-winded to the side. But I just think the background is important.
Yes.
So I totally agree with your point, actually, that yes, sometimes the cultures have incompatible values. Like some places don't value liberty at all. And that's okay because, I mean, let's say
it's not okay.
It's not okay.
It's not okay, actually, because I do believe that there are certain cultures. So I'm going to go on record and say that I think that there are certain cultures that are morally superior. For instance, and I've said this before on my podcast, civilizations that practice child sacrifice our civilization's martyrdom, where they give children and say, I want my child to die for a cause, is lower than civilizations who want life at all costs.
Yes, 100% agreed. Agreed. So you're right. I would put that incompatibility category still in neocon explanation 1, in the sense that why it didn't work is for that reason as well. And it's not right. And the key difference here is that in neocon 1, you still believe that America is a beacon of light to the nations. It's just unable, for whatever practical reason, to pass on its beliefs and ideas to other nations. Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. But in the second one, you think, why should they even do it? They don't deserve to. They're not morally superior. Fine. Comes Tucker Carlson. And for a long time, I am in total agreement with him. And then I see he's bringing on the president of Iran, the president of Qatar, and he's not asking them difficult questions. He brought on Putin. Mm-hmm. He's not asking difficult questions. He's just sitting back and listening as if they have a legitimate point. Now, why would he do that? And I apologize. I'll get to the anti-Semitism.
Go. Yeah. This is great.
So why is he bringing them on? And why is he acting like that? Bringing them on, I get. It's very interesting. But why isn't he asking the president of Qatar
the tough questions?
Yeah. How come women in your country don't drive? How come they don't have any rights? How come not everyone could vote? How come you have any refugees that come to your country, you abuse them? Why isn't he going down the list of all of the civil rights violations that they commit? Mm-hmm. Why are you funding terrorism? Why do you send money to our universities to try to subvert them, right? He's not asking any of that. He's just like, oh, how interesting. Oh, your country, you guys like to wear those big headbands. How interesting. Like, he's just asking questions like that. It's totally softball. Why? Because it's okay, I'll say it's one of two reasons. Either he can't live with the cognitive dissonance of saying Qatar is evil, Putin is evil, Iran is evil, but we're not going to intervene because it's not in our best interest. He can't handle that cognitive dissonance. So he has to give up on one side of it or the other. Either he has to say, they're not so evil, or he has to say, oh crap, we have to intervene, right? So he's not able to maintain that cognitive dissonance. Or a more cynical answer is he's trying to convince the new right, and by that all cultures are really just equal, so that's why we shouldn't intervene.
I don't think that.
And that's bringing it back to the left's definition of why not to be a neocon.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think that that's where he's at. I still think that if he is a conservative person, I never really considered that. What you're saying in option 1 is the reason he can't call them out is logically, if you say country X is evil and is committing all these heinous crimes against humanity, naturally, logically, the next step would be we have to do something. We have to intervene. And so you can't do that. So you're not going to call them out because the cognitive dissonance is too much. Option B is where the left is what you're saying. And that's a little bit more insidious, where you're saying that he may be prescribing to values that are leftist values, that, it's all relative. What is evil or abhorrent to us may be not evil and abhorrent to him, to the other country. What do you think about people who say he's being paid by Qatar? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I guess I never like those explanations. This person's paid off. This person's paid off. It's like, okay, but fine, then we have nothing to really discuss. Someone's being paid off. Show me the evidence. If there's evidence, then I'll just stop talking about it. You know?
Agreed. I just wanted I wanted to address that because people say it all the time, that he's just being paid by Qatar, but I doubt it. But again, I haven't seen evidence.
Yeah.
And so simultaneously, as he's entertaining these two options, the anti-Semitism creeps in because, listen, I'm going to say something. When I was in college, I was like 18 years old, and we were sitting around in this lounge, and we asked a question, I don't remember how, if there was a World War III, where would it erupt? And I immediately said the Middle East. because that's the most volatile region. And the reason is because of Israel. Not because Israel's bad, because Israel is the only democracy, and it makes all the surrounding countries angry. It makes them angry because, it's like why anti-Semitism? Because the Jew reminds the world of the moral character. But anyway, the point being is he is now entertaining anti-Semitic ideas because he is kind of entertaining what you're saying, this kind of moral relativism. And the most recent war with Iran, you can't say Israel was not part of that. Of course, Israel was at the center. And so for him, of course, he's now using words such as, making statements such as Israel is dragging America. Israel is really controlling America. The foreign policies, Israel's wielding all this power. And it does tap into these classic anti-Semitic tropes of Jews controlling the world. The nefarious Jew is always behind the curtain, the puppeteer. So what else do you think is happening on the right in terms of, what about so the classical anti-Semitism, I understand. Something you and I have also discussed off this podcast is grievance narratives, and that they're not that different from the left. The left says, oh my God, we're all suppressed and oppressed by the colonizer. And what are they saying on the right? Tell us.
Right. They're on the left, they're saying everything terrible in my life is because of the power structure, like that is inherent in society. I'm just powerless and everyone else or someone else is more powerful. And now they're literally replicating that on the woke right. They're saying the Jews are controlling the world, and so now everything in my life is terrible because the Jews have controlled it and made it that way. Mm-hmm. So it's the same powerlessness, complaining, lack of personal responsibility for your life, but just focused in another direction.
It's just ironic because that's the antithesis to America, which is, as you say, like responsibility, accountability, meritocracy, making it, not seeing that the world is stacked, like everything is stacked against you. It's just so un-American, and yet these people are waving these it's just strange to me.
Yeah, and perhaps if you look at the population on the right, where this narrative comes from, it is from the more disenfranchised part of the right. Mm-hmm. Younger people who are economically insecure, incels, people who live in their parents' basements on Twitter, places like that, it's breeding grounds there for this kind of rhetoric because those people feel disenfranchised.
Right.
If you don't mind, if I could just add one more point on the Tucker Carlson thing that goes along with it. Tucker Carlson doesn't just pussyfoot around it. He brought on, just most recently, a guest, John Mearsheimer. Mm-hmm. John Mearsheimer, and I really want to make this point. He wrote a book in 2006 called The Israel Lobby. Yeah. It has been debunked numerous times, but its message stands there. Israel is controlling America, right. Mm-hmm. Okay? So most recently, John Mearsheimer's whole point is all countries act in their own self-interest. And sometimes when they get involved in conflicts, it's actually not in their own best interest. And that's a big tragedy. They should just be focusing on themselves. So, and he especially says that about the United States. So the name of the talk of the podcast title that he did on Tucker Carlson was The Genocide in Gaza and Why the U.S. Should Not Be a Part of It. This goes exactly to my point of cognitive dissonance. Everyone knows there's not a genocide in Gaza. It's not a genocide because there's no genocidal intent, period. The fact that people are dying is terrible. The fact that there's a war is terrible. The fact that there might be a famine is terrible. But there's no genocidal intent, and that makes it the difference. And we know that. Just Israelis are not genocidal. They don't have that intent. They would love a two-state solution. A safe one for them, obviously. But so what is he doing there? He's using manipulative language in order to manipulate people into not wanting to intervene, because he can't hold the cognitive dissonance of saying, Israel is awesome. They're fighting this war the best that they can. They're being as moral as they can, but it's not in America's interest to have any intervention there or to send them any money.
Why can't he say that?
Because it doesn't appeal hard enough on one hand. It's not appealing. It's not appealing enough because when you open your eyes and you actually see what's going on in the Middle East, it is in America's interest to have some say in it for their own safety. All of the terrorism that happens around the world comes out of that region. Israel has all the intel on it. They are our number one best friend in the area to figure out what's going on and to fight it. You think America doesn't better?
He knows this?
Mearsheimer
and Tucker Carlson.
They know. Maybe they know it and they disagree. And I think good minds can disagree on to what degree support for Israel actually helps America. But to bring in that sneaky emotional falsehood just to kind of get the people on the new right who don't want to support Israel to go along with not supporting it, that's why it's done. It's done for that reason, to manipulate. It's a falsehood that is done just for manipulation. Because what he really should say, and it's a much more boring position, is Israel rocks, they're kicking butt all over town, but it's just not in America's interest to intervene. That's the honest position.
What I'm having cognitive dissonance because I truly believe Tucker Carlson does love America.
Yeah.
Let's start with like first principles. Do you think he loves America?
Yeah, I feel it's funny that we're like we ended up discussing him, but you're right. He's like a symbol of
he's a symbol of this problem, right?
Yeah, right.
He loves America, right?
Right. Sure.
So naturally, Israel is in America's interest. Are you saying he just doesn't understand this? I just don't understand. They are our biggest intel. Surely he understands that the exporters of terror in this world is not Israel. So I'm having just a problem understanding how could you simultaneously say you love America and turn against somebody who's America's best friend?
And I think it's for the reason that he loves the position of not intervening almost more than he loves the truth. The truth is really hard to grapple with. The world is complicated. Some intervention is good. Some interventions are not useful. Some will work. Some won't. It's nuanced. But he just wants the blanket statement of non-interventionism to like cover all areas all the time.
So that's maybe his actual
position yes.
is not at all costs even.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the problem is that it starts tiptoeing slowly towards the position of, well, we shouldn't intervene because all cultures are the same and all of them have their own way that they want to live. And, you know, like the stupidest argument I hear on the right about not intervening in Ukraine, and I am not one who thinks we should, but the stupidest argument that I hear is when people say, well, Putin acted rationally because he was afraid of NATO right on his border and he didn't want NATO on his borders. And it's like, wow, well, the only kind of person that doesn't want NATO on their border is an evil person.
Is a dictator,
Is a dictator. So it doesn't doesn't negate the whole premise anyway that he's evil. Like just because you came up with a rational explanation why he did what he did, it doesn't take Stalin was rational when he killed everyone around him because he wanted to maintain power, and rationally that's the best way to maintain power. It doesn't remove the stain of being evil.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence.
Sorry. Yes.
No, again, it's very interesting. I want to move into other conversations. I still want to talk about something else that we've discussed a little off the show, which is Christian support for Israel is strong, but you have identified something within the Catholic movement, something that maybe do you want to discuss? Do you want to talk about? Because we talk about, for instance, Episcopalian Christians tend to be more on the left, so they adopt the anti-Zionist language. What is happening with Christianity that you've noticed and observed within the Catholic movement?
Yes. there is a strain in Catholicism. First of all, Catholicism is booming right now in America. There are a lot of people coming back to it because it's the only type of Christianity that has strict rules and regulations. And like all children, we're looking for boundaries, and people who are lost when we've taken away all of people's boundaries, we've, torn apart the family, values, ideas,
Eroded everything.
People are looking for something stable and with boundaries. And Catholicism, of all the sects of Christianity, has the most boundaries and rules and traditions. So there's a big boom among the youth, and they're going to Catholicism. But again, this is the same youth that we discussed that are living in their mom's basement and then leaving their mom's basement and hopefully having families. But it's that new right that's coming up, and they're attracted to Catholicism, but part of it, with it comes the anti-Semitism. And unfortunately, Catholicism has a history of anti-Semitism, and it has a long history of it that preceded the Reformation, when, new sects of Protestant Christianity came about. And in those places where there was Protestantism, there was somewhat less, I want to say somewhat less anti-Semitism.
Let me ask you this question. Again, this is from our conversations offline here. And I'm really not an expert on Catholicism or Christianity, but there's this notion of turn the other cheek, love thy neighbor, like this idea of love. Judaism is very, very different. With Christianity, it's anchored in this notion of love, and you will reach salvation through love of all human beings. So,
and forgiveness,
right? So then, again, I'm having cognitive dissonance. So where's the anti-Semitism? How do you love everyone but demonize a certain population? And by the way, I want to just say something else, which is I think that a lot of these conservatives who may be Catholic and who are isolationists, I think that the reason they say we shouldn't go is that we should at all costs try to be peaceful. Peace at all costs. So they're very different. They're actually very similar to leftists in that way.
Totally. It's also coming full circle there, the pacifism movement.
Right.
Yes. And that's also a key important difference. You could be a non-interventionist like Teddy Roosevelt. He always said, speak softly, but carry a big stick. That's a form of interventionism. He wasn't a neocon. He wasn't about to go in every country and make liberty, but he also didn't shy away from conflict if it was necessary. And the pacifism movement, which, yes, exactly, turn the other cheek, that's what's happening in Catholicism, bringing back to do not intervene at any cost. And if you say...
And then when the Jew, Israel, is trying to bring us into another conflict, then that's a problem.
Exactly.
Because the goal is to pacify conflict, be
exactly.
conflict averse. I see.
But then in order to be a pacifist, you have to come back to saying everyone's the same, all cultures are equal, all of them are the same. Or you just say, oh, well, I can't really do anything in this world. I'm totally impotent and I just can sit back and live my own life. That's not the American way.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what America is about. As much as I think America first is America first, it's also America is a beacon of light into the world.
That's why you're a neocon again.
Yeah.
Well, let's switch to something else that's a big passion of mine. Shella loves politics. Since we were little, you were always standing on the table preaching. You wanted to be Speaker of the House, I remember.
I did.
Yes. Mine is obviously... it deals with politics, but, confronting, combating anti-Semitism. You have another amazing tagline when it comes to dealing with Jew hatred. Can you share that one? Because I actually made a sticker from it.
Yeah.
How do you, when people tell you Israel is an apartheid, Israel is a colonizer, Zionism is racism, you guys are, there's a genocide happening. Israel has the right to exist, but what is your answer?
Yeah, my tagline is we're here, deal with it. And to me, that signifies I am tired of making justifications and having discussions or arguments or trying to prove anything. It doesn't work anyway. And people are not coming from a place of rationality when they're saying those things. They're not coming from a place of education or wanting to learn. They're just coming from a place of replacing whatever BLM now with, anti-Zionism. It's grievance, grievance, grievance. I found a new place for my grievance. So I'm just not interested in discussion or debate anymore. I'm just going to say we're here. We have, thank God, power, unlike what we had before, not ashamed of it, and we're going to use it to protect ourselves. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Yeah, I love that so much. It doesn't work with the youth, I have to tell you. I work with youth, and power makes them very uncomfortable. And within the Jewish community, you know what's the most uncomfortable is that Israel is an ethno-state. Let's talk about that. A lot of my students ask me how could you defend the law of return? How could you defend that Israel should be a Jewish country, that it's an ethno-state, that nationalism, we've done a great job in educating about the horrors of Nazism. And so what we've done is said all nationalism is bad. That's what we've kind of made this, we've arrived to this conclusion that nationalism is bad. And so anything that smacks of nationalism is racist, supremacist. What do you do? What do you say? You say we're here, deal with it?
I mean, every country except for 10 are ethno-states. You don't seem to have a problem with Pakistan, with India, with Saudi Arabia, with Japan, with China. All those places are ethno-states. They're 99% that ethnicity.
And I'm going to give you the argument that the student will tell me. But Dr. Lekht, as Jews, I don't want to hold myself to the standard of a China or a Poland. We are Or Lagoyim. We are a light unto the nation. We are here to uplift the world. We don't want to be like all of them. We want to uplift the world. We don't want to be like that.
Yeah, that's when you start having to say really unpleasant things.
Uh-oh, let's go. It's okay.
Okay. So take Denmark. Denmark was, let's say, 100 years ago, 100% Danish. Mm-hmm. As more and more Muslim immigrants have immigrated there, their crime rate goes up, their poverty goes up, and it doesn't change in generations. It gets worse and worse and worse. So now, let's say their crime rate went from 1 murder a year to 1,000 murders a year, okay? And they have a 10% Muslim population, people who immigrated from all over the Middle East. Now, we don't want an ethno-state, so now we're going to have 20% Muslim, 30% Muslim, 40% Muslim. At what point is Denmark just not Denmark anymore? And it's not only that it's not Denmark, it's not even multicultural, because there's just so many other people that want to immigrate there that are from Muslim countries that now that country is just Pakistan version 2. So you can't not have an ethno-state unless you do one of two things. You don't let anyone else in, or you assimilate everyone. But if you assimilate everyone, then oh no, you're gentrifying them, you're taking away their culture. But those cultures want to maintain their culture. So if they come to your country, then they maintain their culture. And if there's enough of them, then your country is just it's not going to be a boiling pot of, a melting pot. It's instead going to be just Pakistan. Look at Minnesota. This is a great example. And I just want to add this. There is a very large percentage in certain areas, like Minneapolis, of Somalis. They've elected Ilhan Omar, who has said publicly multiple times that her number one priority is Somalia. Now, how is it a melting pot to have people come here that then literally they don't want to have they want an ethno-state. They just want to make your place an ethno-state. So this is why the we're here, deal with it argument works, because the answer is, if you're going to have an ethno-state, we're going to have an ethno-state.
So to the student who says, and I appreciate your honesty here.
Yeah.
I want to push back for a quick second, but to the student who says, but as Jews, we are here to uplift the world and we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. Your answer is, we're not in the messianic age. We're in the real world. And in this world, if you don't feel comfortable with an ethnic state, somebody's going to make your place an ethnic state. And that's just the reality.
That's a great way to put it. If you don't have one, someone will make your home their ethno-state home.
Okay, so my challenge then to you is, how come, so America is not a nation, ethno-state, right?
That's right.
America is the immigration capital. I think like you and I come from a different country. We've assimilated. We're from California. A lot of my friends were Hispanic. They've assimilated. So are you saying what I'm trying to ask you is, in your two options with Denmark, is that the immigrants are either going to come and not subvert, but basically take the country and make it Somalia 2.0 or Pakistan 2.0. That's option one. Or option two, Denmark puts lots and lots and lots of resource to assimilate, but then you get accused of culturally, basically, it's called cultural genocide, right?
Yeah.
You're committing
whitewashing their culture.
Right.
Right.
But in America, you and I grew up in the 90s, and this notion of the melting pot, like we have Hispanic month, we have Latino month. We celebrate all these cultures. We don't erase them. Do you think that we erase them in the United States of America? I feel like this is such an interesting example of people coming in and being able to maintain being an American, assimilating, but also staying true to their culture. What are your thoughts about that? Why can't Europe do that? Well, or is it, and here's the most uncomfortable thing, is that we're talking about people who come in with Sharia law values.
One, it could be people coming in with incompatible values. They don't want to assimilate. But two, we're afraid to tell people they have to assimilate. So it's actually, the project isn't working most recently. When we were growing up,
in the 90s,
yeah. We came here. It was embarrassing for us to speak Russian in public. We would be embarrassed. If our moms were talking in Russian to each other, we'd be like, Mom, That's what assimilation is. There's a price. Yes, you're a little bit uncomfortable about your culture, but you pay it in order to live and be part of a new culture. No one wants to pay that price anymore, and no one's asking the immigrants to pay that price.
But that's kind of sad. You're saying that in order to make it,
stay where you are.
Wait, so you're saying in order to make it somewhere, you kind of have to shove your culture down?
A little bit, because you live with other people somewhere else, and that's part of it. And that's going to be more true for cultures that don't have the same values of liberty and equal women's rights, for example, like we do. I don't want people practicing genital mutilation in our country. Yes, you're going to have to shove down that part of your culture that practices that in order to live here. It's just a reality. Otherwise, stay where you are.
Okay. So back to confronting anti-Semitism I talk about this all the time. So being part of all these advocacy groups, they say, okay, we need to identify our target audience and then kind of tailor the message to that target audience. So if we want to penetrate the left-wing space and try to educate them about the dangers of anti-Zionism, they say, let's use left language, such as anti-Zionism is institutionally racist. Anti-Zionism must be dismantled with like a fist up, like a BLM fist, like dismantle anti-Zionism.
Which, by the way, they're uncomfortable with power, but when certain people assert power, they're perfectly comfortable with it. Like if the BLM sign has a fist up, that's literally power, right?
Yeah, but it's punching up. It's punching up to a bigger guy who has more power in order to get your little, minute in the sunshine, your little power moment. But the fist up is very symbolic. It's not just power. It's we're going to dismantle something that's above us, that's worse. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of those people who are desperately trying to to prove that Israel is not colonial. They'll talk about Israel as being Jewish people are indigenous. They'll talk about Jews are being Jews of color. They're brown Jews. And they'll talk about how anti-Zionism is institutional racism. What do you think of these strategies?
Terrible.
Really?
Yeah. You got to get to the root of the problem. And I think it's what you said. You had a great point. They're uncomfortable with power. So you need to tell them why power has done really good things and not just the brainwashing that they received that power's done bad. Power is when you come in to World War II, and without the most powerful country, America, you couldn't have defeated the Nazis. Power is when you come in with, you stand up for what's right, and you have the ability to enforce that because you've built up enough strength to be able to do it. Like the way that Israel has saved itself in 1948 and 67, 73.
But their argument is if you talk like that, you'll be immediately dismissed as right-wing. You'll never have a chance then to penetrate those spaces. If you're going to celebrate power, you're done.
Yeah. But this is like between a rock and a hard place. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think catering to that language is not, it's unbelievable. No one is going to see Jews as victims anymore. No one's going to buy that at all. Mm-hmm. Jews are in powerful positions. They're wealthy. They have their own country. They are successful. You can boo-hoo all you want, but way more Gazans die than Israelis. And if you're just like looking at those numbers, that's the reality. It's just way sadder for everyone else than for Jews. So Jews are just, they are on occasion victims, but they're not victims enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so no one's ever going to buy that because in the victim totem pole, they're just not at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thanks. No, it's important because these are conversations I'm part of. And I have another answer, which I think that you're right. And what I said, which is that we have to advocate that power is not evil. Power could be for good.
Yeah.
But I also think, and I've said this to you many times, that the root of this anti-Zionism is not anti-Zionism. It's the frameworks, these Marxist frameworks that vilify power, that say that all the world's ills are because of power. That needs to be addressed. That needs to be addressed in our schools. And I work with kids. And so from a young age, we're priming them. They've been marinating in this, this framework that the underdog can do no wrong. The underdog can get away literally with murder because they're the underdog. And you're right, bringing it to the recent war between Israel and Gaza, you've got, if your goal is to show we're the victim, it's a losing strategy because the numbers won't show that. The numbers won't show that.
And my hope is that we're here, deal with it, is similar to like a Trumpian speak. And I'll explain. One of my favorite lines that Trump ever said was shithole countries.
Oh.
And I loved that because
I knew you were going to go there.
Sorry, should I not say the S word?
No, that's okay. That's cool. Let's go there.
I love when he said that because we've been so...
It's going to resonate so nicely for people.
We've been drowning for so long in the idea that everyone is the same and everyone is equal. And it was like so refreshing to remember there are countries that are absolutely morally corrupt and they're shitholes. It's reflected in the fact of how their people live. Like places where people live badly is 97% the fault of the culture of those people. And we need to remind ourselves of that.
I just want to say to you, though, that it's difficult and sobering, and it's difficult to use that message with a lot of people, because what you're ultimately saying is if you don't have values that align with these values here, you probably shouldn't be here.
Let me say this.
And you're going into xenophobia here.
Okay, let me say it like this. The strategy, let's go back to the strategy. The strategy is make space for your position. The position has been so crowded out that it doesn't exist anymore. But when you see, for example, in all the European countries, the Muslims, they bring out their little prayer shawls and they're praying in front of the cathedrals. They're praying in front of like France's, what's it called? Notre Dame. They're going all over the place and they pull out their little mats and they're praying in the middle of streets. Why do you think they're doing that? Because they're saying, we're here. Deal with it.
But wait a second. You said what you love about the West and what you love about America is freedom.
Yeah.
You want to fight for that. So are you going to take away somebody's freedom to take out that mat?
No, I'm going to just give back the freedom to the rest of the population to have the kind of country that they want to have. And what they want to have is a country that doesn't have people here whose values conflict with their own, that has a cultural flavor that they want. That right's been taken away from them.
That's interesting. In this conversation of rights, it always ends up somebody's rights are going to get trampled on somebody else's rights. So in other words, their right is getting trampled on French people's rights, and French people's rights will then get trampled on the immigrants' rights. I understand what you're saying. All right. Well, we are almost out of time. What is one? I'm going to end with this juicy one because you've given us a lot. Probably getting a little in trouble here, but that's okay. That's okay. What is one thing that we are not paying attention to that we should all be paying attention to?
I appreciate you saying that. So I'm just going to read a short statement.
Okay.
I think it's very important that people have a 3-sentence understanding of what the Russia collusion hoax was. And I think there's like a lot of stuff going around. It's a really complicated story. So I'm going to read a refined Chat GPT version of what it is. Feel free to save this in your browser. And if anyone asks you, what's going on with that? What happened with that? Is that even anything? You know exactly what to answer them, because this was one of the greatest moments of corruption against democracy that's happened in the United States. And it's too convoluted, so people don't understand it. So they don't know the stakes involved and how awful it was to our democracy. It was an undermining of the election.
Okay,
yes.
1 second. When I asked you, what is something that we should all be thinking about, talking about that we're not, it's the hoax of the Russia collusion.
Yes,
okay,
that President Trump colluded
with Putin.
With Putin to win the 2016 election.
Okay, tell me about that.
Yes. The Russia hoax refers to the false claim originating from Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign that Donald Trump colluded with Russia to win the election, a claim largely based on the Steele dossier, a collection of unverified allegations compiled by ex-British spy Christopher Steele and funded by the DNC and Clinton's campaign. Senior Obama officials, including CIA Director Brennan, FBI Director Comey, and others, used this fake dossier to justify investigating Trump despite knowing that much of it was false. The FBI then used it to obtain surveillance warrants, like the ones that you didn't like when people surveyed people during the Iraq War. Mm-hmm. Surveillance warrants, exactly, against Trump's campaign aide, fueling years of media coverage, false media coverage, and special counsel investigations that ultimately found no evidence of collusion. Those are my 3 sentences. You should know it. And that's what happened.
So, being a teacher, that even though that to you is simple, that needs to be even more simplified. So let me simplify that for the viewers and audience.
Please.
What you're saying here really is we should be very concerned and alarmed that in the year 2016 to that first presidential Trump election, there was a concerted effort within the FBI, Hillary Clinton, Obama administration to turn out DNC
and CIA.
Okay, and CIA, knowing that they are basically dealing with forged documents. Would you say?
Yes, created
documents to go after a lie and basically sell this lie to the media. And the media has been hounding Trump, but also really, keep on sending the signal to the American population over and over and over that this election was stolen, and it was stolen by a foreign entity because Trump colluded with Putin. And you're saying that this is so egregious because it is an attack and assault on democracy, and that it was done from within.
Yes.
And you're
exactly
saying
that.
Yeah. I wish we had more time, but I want to challenge you on that, because what you're saying is politics is corrupt. And I'm like, okay, politics is corrupt. And I said this to you before, Watergate, Nixon, that was an assault on democracy. And what do you say to that?
This one was effective. And everyone, for 2 years, it prevented President Trump from being able to do his job, and he was impeached on it. And to this day, no one walks around saying, or very few people walk around saying, wow, we were lied to for 2 years about President Trump. No one even knows. No one understands the complexity. And we were lied to by the president, the person running for president, the CIA, the FBI, and an entire party.
Okay, but how do you know how do you know that we were lied? How do you know? It's all out in the open now? Are you saying?
Yes, it's all out in the open in the documents that have come out.
But few are covering it.
No one's really covering except the right-wing media outlets. But the problem is, you see how I read it, it's a little convoluted. It's very hard to understand. I wish I could break it down for someone on a little note card, step by step. There's 10 steps. First, the Steele dossier, then CIA and Brennan, then, et cetera. But
I think what's really egregious here is how deeply in this was, how committed our American leaders that we chose, who are in the Democratic Party, they were orchestrating this.
Correct.
People who we entrust, like the CIA, you're saying, the FBI.
Right. Our institutions that are supposed to be neutral were responsible for this. It's one thing that the DNC did it.
Right.
But it's another that the CIA and FBI did it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I wish I could talk to you more. You asked me, Naya, why do you want to bring me to your show? Who am I? And I wanted people to hear you because you have such unique ideas. We talk every day. I love talking to you. You're quite brilliant. You didn't even share everything that we talk about all the time. I do just want to, ask people to, can they follow you? Do you exist online?
Yeah, I have 3 Twitter followers.
Amazing.
Yeah.
She has 3 Twitter followers, but she does invaluable work for the Freedom Foundation, going after teachers' unions who are basically the cartel in the United States of America. And maybe one day you and I will come back and talk just about your work with the teachers' unions. And you are actually drafting a brief for the Supreme Court?
Yes, I've drafted several petitions for writ of certiorari. Let's see if the Supreme Court will take it.
Amazing. Thanks so much for joining me. Subscribe, share. Thank you. Until next time.